Yeah.
All right. All right, 3, 2, 1, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. This is Cameron Riddell with Bird Barrier here to host our talk about bird flu. It is obviously a huge subject in the news. It's got the word bird in it, so Bird Barrier should be focused on this to some degree, and that's why we've decided to pull together some resources and some thoughts and share thoughts with you guys. With us today, who helped us put this material together, is Ariana Sabine. She is an environmental specialist, has quite a bit of experience in bird control, works with us on lots of different projects in the bird control space, has lots of experience herself, and so I just want to acknowledge that she's home under the weather and not able to be with us here in person today, but she is on, and hopefully, Ariana, you can wave and say hello if you'd like.
Morning. Good to see everyone, and I'll be in the chat answering any questions throughout the presentation and towards the end as well. So, thanks, Cameron.
You're welcome. So essentially, we're going to get going. I think it's important to really discuss why we're here. What are we doing here in the first place? And there's obviously a huge amount of bird flu in the news with culling of chickens and possible transmission to other animals and maybe transmission to humans. There's definitely a safety and environmental impact out there that is a real thing and could get worse. We're here to talk about what it is. Obviously, for those of us in the pest and bird management industry, there is a financial opportunity worth exploring here. We of course want to get out and serve the public and do what we can to reduce this situation, but there's also opportunities out there for us as business owners. It is very hard to know where the bird flu is going to go from here, or where it's going to go at any moment, at any given time. It is moving literally with the wind and with the birds and with migration. So essentially, the community on this Zoom call are people that should be having this conversation and discussing it, figuring out what it is and what we can do about it. And so that's essentially why we're here. We're not here to say that we have a solution to the bird flu. We're here to say that we are understanding it more and more, and we understand possibly how to help in some ways. So essentially, what is the bird flu? Let's start off with just defining what it is. It's HPAI stands for highly pathogenic avian influenza, pathogenic. You've probably heard H5N1 a lot on the news, which is the current strain out there impacting poultry and wildlife. The USDA APHIS has been tracking the outbreak since 2022, so we're 3 to 4 years into this situation now, and it does appear to have a 100% mortality rate amongst domestic poultry. So this is a very serious disease, especially for chickens. Oops, slide control. So what do we know about the virus? It's very, very resistant. It can survive for weeks in cold weather, and it can live on surfaces, and it can live on and in animal feed, water sources, equipment, clothing, or shoes. So this is not just live and active while it's being inhaled or exhaled by live animals. It actually can sit on surfaces and be a problem long term. All bird species are susceptible to the bird flu. Essentially, once any bird can get it, but the major vectors especially are pigeons and starlings, blackbirds, waterfowl, like shorebirds, ducks, and geese. Pigeons aren't necessarily moving it from city to city. That's more of a job of the migrating waterfowl and birds that migrate, geese and things like that. So, but once it's transmitted from a migrating bird to a local wild bird, then it becomes a problem for the local area. So there's a lot of misconceptions about how it actually spreads around from bird to people and things like that. It does pass through direct contact which is infected birds, droppings, and other bodily discharges. And it also can be transmitted in the air, essentially, when sick birds are infected and they sneeze or cough. And we thought that was interesting. We looked it up, and sick birds do, in fact, sneeze and cough. Never seen it myself, but I think I can imagine what that's all about. The diagram here is quite interesting. It shows, essentially the waterfowl would start, the wild birds would start the situation. They're the ones that get sick first. They then pass it to poultry, and then you can see that it can pass from poultry to humans, poultry to other animals. The wild birds can pass it on to other animals and humans. Of course, it's generally required to have close contact. So mostly the humans that are getting sick right now are working around the birds, coming in contact with the birds, their droppings and things like that. So pretty cool little diagram, just kind of showing how it sort of stays within itself and also can spread out to the outer side of the community. This now will not slide. There it goes. I'm controlling the slides on this phone. So what are the symptoms of bird flu in chickens? They are the ones that are suffering the most right now, and it's important to understand, what they're dealing with. So obviously, and not surprisingly, some of these birds can just die quickly without any clinical signs whatsoever. But generally, they display a lack of appetite or energy. They decrease their egg production, or the eggs are soft or misshapen. Their heads swell, their comb, eyelids, wattles, hawks, they all start swelling and looking unusual. Purple discoloration of parts of the body, nasal discharge, coughing and sneezing, incoordination, the birds are stumbling around, and diarrhea. So the chicken farmers probably know well how to identify when their birds are not well, but if you're in a poultry farm, you can be looking for these things yourselves. Okay, so what is the current landscape? Where do we sit right now as we speak? The migration season is upon us. Birds are moving from the south to the north, and they are carrying the bird flu with them across state and county lines, of course. Millions of dollars have already been spent since 2014 to implement biosecurity measures to try and help eradicate or reduce the spread of the disease, or the disease passing from wild birds to the poultry. Farmers and building owners have been taking measures and asking what they can do to protect their buildings, their birds, their livestock from the bird flu. So this is actively happening on these properties. So this is a map that shows the migration, and you can see, so the bottom of the map is April 24th, the top of the map is May 15th. We are around April 16th, I believe, right now. So this is just starting. The birds are starting to move from the warmer south, Mexico, and South and Central America up to Canada, essentially passing through the US here. So you can see these waves, and you can see that this is all going to be happening here pretty quickly. The disease, of course, is passed by the commingling of these wild birds that are migrating with the birds that are staying there in the area, like pigeons, starlings, blackbirds, things like that. This is an interesting map here. This shows where bird flu is in the country at the moment. Zach, can you click on that and show us? Yeah, I think you're going to click the all upper left. You click the all flocks. Not on mine. It's not. Oh, sorry. What am I seeing here? Sorry, everybody. We got the wrong screen here. This is a live map that shows. Okay, so all flocks. I believe you can click the upper left there. All flocks. Total out. Yeah, you don't want to be on any state. Total outbreak. You're going to click those two windows right there. The move it up. Yeah. Last 30 days. And you can click all on all flocks, click on there. And we want to do birds affected, or commercial flocks is interesting. And you can see that it's mostly commercial flocks. It's in the Midwest right now. But total outbreak is the one that shows that this is essentially everywhere in America as we speak. So, all right, back to the other screen if you don't mind.
Good to go.
Okay. What do I click here? It says play. Play. Okay. Okay. So there is a $1 billion plan, and this is effective February 26th. We have not been able to verify if this is still going on. You're probably aware that there have been budget cuts going on in different departments of the government, so we don't know exactly where this stands. But you can see there has been a $1 billion plan to increase biosecurity, to speed the repopulation when chickens have to be put down, cutting through red tape to make it faster to operate and make these moves, innovate protection, which is essentially vaccines and things like that, and adjust trade. So, adjusting things on imports and exports, making decisions based on this disease. So, just to show that the government, is involved or was involved or will be involved in the future. It's very serious. Obviously, this affects our food source. Everyone's aware that eggs are precious now. They're expensive. And so this is all affecting the price of food in the stores as well as the health and safety of the birds and the humans involved. Okay, did I skip to? Okay. So what can you do? What can we do as an industry? What can you do as a pest provider? It's essentially spreading awareness and creating an impact. So you have the opportunity in your local market to serve as a leader in bird control and promote preventative actions. That's talking about installing products to keep birds out of spaces or off of building roofs or away from, wild birds, away from domesticated birds or poultry. Staying knowledgeable about practices and identifying potential hazards is important, delivering solutions there. And knowing the key biodiversity measures in bird flu, which is reduce, protect, and prevent, which we're going to go into now a little bit. So obviously, in the position you are in, you have an opportunity to share information with your customers. We do have some information, more in-depth information that we've been compiling in some documents here that we're going to share with you by email sometime after this presentation. So a little more in-depth on things that we just don't have time to cover today. So first of all, know your customer. Your new customers, you may have new customers, you may be able to approach new customers because of this situation. You may not do much work on poultry farms yet, but if there's some around you, you may be able to approach them and talk about solutions that you can provide, poultry and livestock farms. And be proactive with your current customers. If you have customers already that are somewhere in the line of fire here, which may be food production or poultry or livestock, they're suffering or may be exposed to this. So these are people that can become your customers. A lot of this is going to come down to structures. It's very hard to keep birds from flying in the sky. It's very hard to keep birds from landing in trees in the woods or landing on flat ground around farms and things like that. But structures is where a lot of this occurs and where there are some opportunities for you to get out and do some work. So farms and buildings that house these animals, and again, your current customers may have some of these situations going on. So what are the impacted structures? So with poultry, it's usually, with both poultry and livestock, it's large structures, generally open air. The structure on the left there, that's a poultry farm where in this case, the chickens are allowed out of the building to what they call free-range chickens, so they're allowed to walk around out in the fresh air. Those large doors on the lower left there are what opens and closes so the birds can come and go. Obviously, it's a challenge where they are at the moment. I believe that a lot of poultry farmers at the moment are not allowing the birds outside with their free-range time every day because they're worried about the exposure to the bird flu. The picture on the right, you see that's obviously cattle eating food. And what's interesting is the railings in that photograph are covered in bird droppings. So birds regularly, and this has been there since the beginning of time essentially, fly into these feeding situations, and then they can jump down and feed. And obviously a sick bird, if they deposit their droppings into the feed and the livestock eats it, that's where that cow can become ill. So another way that the virus can get into the animals is through food, and that means that the food needs to be the chain of command, or the chain of custody needs to be understood in the food process from the beginning to the end. It's possible that you see those bags of feed there. It's possible that feed got contaminated where it's being made or being processed, and could have bird droppings in that bag, which could be fed to animals. So the opportunities are out there for us in the industry to be talking to the feed producers as well, and seeing where birds may get into their process if that's happening, and it is definitely happening out there. So signs of wild bird presence, we all know what our common birds look like, but it's important to understand what do goose droppings look like, what do the nests look like of some of these wild birds, feathers, tracks, damage. There are ways to identify that wild birds are in our midst or on your customers' properties. And so it's important to, all of us in the bird control business can understand the problem by, yep, that's pigeon droppings, those are sparrow droppings, that's starlings. So we can identify the problem usually, but it's always best, if at all possible, to verify the actual birds. So yeah, I see pigeon droppings, but I'm gonna come back at dusk when the birds are coming back to roost and identify the birds visually. So reduce. Reduce is the first step that I mentioned earlier, and it is essentially to try and reduce the amount of wild birds or the interaction between wild birds and livestock or humans in an area. And there's several ways to do that. It's not as simple as putting up 10 feet of bird spike or something like that, but it is important to understand how the surrounding waters and ponds and grassy areas affect the birds. The geese love ponds, they love water, they love grass. And a lot of this can be done on Google. Look at a site, look at your customer's facility on Google and understand, zoom out on the satellite photo. What are bodies of water around there? Where are landfills? Where are things that attract birds? And to have a good understanding. And things that you can do, for example, our stealth net is commonly installed over bodies of water. In this case, an airport didn't want birds flying around the runways, and they decided to net off this pond. It's quite a large pond, maybe it's a small lake, I'm not sure the technical differentiation between the two, but this keeps the birds from going in the water and drinking and bathing and doing all those things, and reduces the number of birds around the airport. Another common solution out there is what's called grid wire. And this is commonly used to keep aquatic birds off the roofs of buildings or out of flat areas like parking lots, open grounds, things like that. A thorough survey needs to be conducted, a design made to put the posts in place and the wires run across. This does not work for smaller birds like pigeons, starlings, grackles, things like that, but it definitely works for larger birds. So we have quite a bit of experience and can help consult with you guys on things like that. A product that's really come on strong in the last few years is...
We at Bird Control Group provide effective, cost-efficient, sustainable, and neighbor-friendly solutions to bird problems.
Automated laser. that moves around in a pattern. And you can see the green dot on the ground. Okay. There we go. Okay. So the next one is prevent. How do you prevent? This is more of the bird control that we're used to in our world, mechanical solutions. And this is excluding birds out of specific stages of the food processing, which is usually conducted in silos or inside structures. And so I believe we have another video to show, Zach.
One second, let me pull it up. There we go, let me share. There we go.
Don't see it. Oh, if they can see it.
You're muted perfect right now.
Okay, they can definitely see it.
Yes, they can see it.
What is it showing?
Just the production. Well, here we go. It's just gonna.
Okay, so this shows the.
It's the process of how it's made. You can start talking as soon as it's done. Okay, ready?
So that hopefully just shows a little bit of the production process of animal feed, and obviously potential there for birds to get involved in the situation. So here is the production, the poultry feed pellet line production. These are all the steps involved in making feed for poultry, all the way from raw material to feed at the very end, upper left to lower right. We're choosing to sort of focus on the raw material, the silos, and the raw material receiving. These are areas that we feel are most susceptible to an incursion by a sick wild bird. So before the feed arrives at the livestock facility, it's often in piles, and even though it's cleaned thoroughly, humans are still exposed during these stages as well. So there are potential risk for humans in working at these facilities, and also for the animals that eat the feed at the end when it's delivered to the customer. So protecting dairy farms is also obviously challenging, especially because these are, a lot of this is out in the wide open. So a couple things that can be used are the autonomic lasers that we showed you a second ago. The eagle eye is very helpful in repelling birds. The eagle eye is important to be placed properly. We will take a footprint, the map of the area to be protected, and position eagle eyes on the map for you to understand how many to put and where, and as a part of the selling process to the customer. And the results are guaranteed in this case if we do position these on the map. If it's an impossible job, we will tell you that eagle eye will not solve this problem, but eagle eye can either solve or dramatically reduce problems and reduce bird populations at least by 70–80% over a period of time. So this is a egg-laying facility. You can see in this photograph here, and these are generally enclosed or semi-enclosed, and this would be an easier structure to keep birds out of. You would net off the top, the gap between the two roofs there. You would net over the openings on the top of the roof, down the sides of the building, and essentially you could net this space in. You could also stop birds from perching above the chickens on those ledges up there with optical gel or bird shock or any number of ledge deterrents that would be helpful there. The farm structures that you'll see out there are silos, open windows, vents, open air infrastructure, open roofs with a roof with no walls around it, just an overhead canopy essentially, and free range enclosures. So there are lots and lots of, and these are large structures. Obviously, there are lots of opportunities for the bird flu to enter one of these facilities through a bird, with a bird, or through another sick bird, essentially. And there's ways to repel those or slow them down from coming in. Lots of commercial structures. This is more common. What we're dealing with in bird control day in and day out is just keeping birds off the roofs, from getting inside warehouses, from being in the ceiling rafters above shelving and things like that. So again, this is definitely stuff that we can deal with. Many of you already do deal with these types of situations, and something for all of us to continue to do. One of the most common products that is used in these types of situations is the stealth net bird netting, which you can see in some of these photos. It is essentially polyethylene netting, comes in 3/4 inch and 2-inch mesh sizes, secured tightly around the edges, the perimeters of an opening per se, generally with a cable structure and clips that hold it all in place. And these can be very large nets, hundreds of feet in dimension for large openings. You'll see these used sometimes to net off the garden center at a big box store like a Home Depot. That whole garden center might have a net over the top. So you can use these in large areas to keep birds out of large spaces. Essentially, you could use them to allow poultry to go outside during the day for their free range time into a netted off enclosure, for example. But more commonly, you would use the netting to close off small areas or net the underside of loading docks where birds are landing and things like that. The bird shock flex track is very commonly used to keep birds off of ledges from landing on flat surfaces. It's an electrified track. It's kind of like a cattle fence. Birds stand on it, they get a shock, and they leave. It works on all bird species, all sizes of birds, all pressure levels, and it's a great product to keep birds off of long, flat, straight surfaces. It does curve nicely up and down, a little bit left to right as well, but most building structures are straight and flat. The optical gel has been used successfully to keep birds away from, off of all kinds of surfaces, equipment, windowsills, reveals, up in the eaves to keep swallows from building their mud nests up in the ceilings, roof peaks, ledges. This is a high pressure, heavy pressure product that also works on all species. So many of you guys have probably had experience with that. The eagle eye mentioned a minute earlier is a great way to keep birds off of flat surfaces. The photo on the right, that could easily be the roof. That's a roof on a mall, a shopping mall, but that could also be the roof on a large poultry facility or livestock roof or something like that. And those are in the photograph. They're powered by solar panels, so those eagle eyes are all spinning during the day and keeping birds from landing up there. This is the bird skip. This might be a video. There you go. Bird skip. These are motor powered or wind powered, rotating around to keep birds from landing on these solar panels, but they're also used on flat roofs as well. And I think that I've got this in here twice. So moving on to another great ledge product that is often used inside of commercial facilities is the bird slide. This takes a wide ledge and puts a slope on it at a 45-degree angle so that nothing can land on that ledge, nothing can be deposited on that ledge. Bird droppings, nesting materials will essentially not be able to land on a flat surface, and the birds quickly give up. This is exclusion, ledge exclusion we call this. And a lot of these facilities have a lot of bird activity on the ledges, on the walls, going up and down the sides. And so this is a great way to protect. It's also very commonly used in parking structures. The photo on the left is a parking structure that is now bird-proofed. There's a lot of uses for PVC coated mesh, hardware cloth essentially this is. It can come in 1/2 inch or 1 inch squares, and it is very easy to manipulate. We sell it in different widths, 6 inch, 8 inch, 12 inch, 4 feet wide, lengths up to 100 feet long. And this can be used on buildings easily to close off long, narrow gaps, openings, things like that. It's very versatile, easy to cut with shears. And because it's got PVC coating on it, essentially doesn't rust. So obviously, it's important that everybody that's involved in this is practicing their hygiene, wearing PPE, eye protection, masks, helmets, hard hats, gloves, etc. That all goes without saying. We're in an industry where you guys are doing that all day anyway. But another part of this is to be cleaning up bird waste, which is also a big part of bird control, but really important if that bird waste may contain, the bird flu virus. Excuse me. So we have a product that it's called Dissolve It, which is a live enzyme which actually sprayed onto bird droppings and allowed to sit actually consumes the bird droppings. It's a live enzyme that's digesting the droppings. If it's very thick and heavy, you may need to apply it a second time or do some physical removal of droppings, some scraping, sweeping, bagging, and then spraying Dissolve It after that. Always be wearing respirators, HEPA filters, of course, things like that. The Dissolve It comes in a couple different versions. The far left is ready to use, so it's now doesn't need to be mixed with water. You can buy a ready to use version of it. The two in the middle, the Max, are a 3-to-1 dilution. So a quart or a pint with, like the quart, for example, you mix 3 parts water, 1 part Dissolve It, and you've got a gallon of finished product. And then the far right is a gallon, which is that is a 1-to-1 mix, so that gallon will make 2 gallons of Dissolve It. So you should always be considering what you can do to sanitize these sites for your own health and safety and to protect the chicken and livestock and humans that you are there to protect. There's obviously going to be very complicated situations in some of these opportunities out there. Many bird problems already demand several products used at the same time. Netting over here, bird shock over here, optical gel there, eagle eyes on the roof. So an integrated approach. And so it's important that you think about it that way. Don't just try and solve this problem right here, but what else is going on in the bigger sphere here. And we're very happy to share our thoughts with you, work with you, and give you thoughts and ideas about how to approach this, how it might work out from a budgetary standpoint, how much time is involved, what products to use, etc. So essentially, there's no one solution out there that solves all problems. That does not exist. As we get towards the end here, we put this slide together recently, which is interesting in that the number of years of experience that we have at Bird Barrier is our teammates have many, many years of experience in the industry, all the way including Sean. He's our newest guy who has only a half-year experience with us. But you can see, and the total is 179 and a half years of bird control experience here available to you to help you support your ongoing efforts in all bird control. Again, I mentioned Ariana at the beginning, and just some of the sources that we used for this material here in this presentation came from these organizations. We want to definitely thank them and make sure you are aware that we are using information available out there to all of us on the internet. And so we are now available to take some questions about what you guys have seen here. Anything we can